Hello, artist. Welcome. I am so incredibly excited to have you. And if you are an artist who is struggling to find and develop your own style, then I want you to know this video is for you. And these are all the things that I wish I knew 10, 15 years ago. I know that this knowledge will actually take you so much farther if you are able to really find clarity in these areas. It's going to save you so much time. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Wendy Brightbell, and I have actually been teaching online art classes since 2016. And since 2017, I have been teaching on my own platform, and I've worked with over 8,600 students who have taken my courses. I also spend a lot of my time these days mentoring artists, and I have a very signature course that's called Style Lab, where I help artists find clarity and build the skills within all 7 art elements. And so in this video, I want to go a little bit more in depth and talk to you about how to innovate your process and how to develop a style that is unique to you. And this is what I help my artists figure out and find clarity around. And so I am so incredibly excited to share it with all of you. So, welcome to my art style blueprint. And at the end of this video, I am going to share a free resource with all of you that I really can't wait to share. It's amazing, and I've already started using it with my students. And it's going to be a free quiz to help you map out your own creative DNA and find clarity around your style. So I want to get started, and I just have some slides that I would like to share with all of you today. Okay, so let's start here because I think this is really important for artists to recognize, and I like to put this out there right at the beginning. There really are two types of artists. One is a hobby artist, and these are artists who are completely content to copy someone else's style and really not innovate for themselves. There's nothing wrong with being a hobby artist, but oftentimes these artists are not quite ready to do the work to get better, build the skills that they need to build. And sometimes it's just because you don't have the capacity, the time, or the space to do that right now. And if that's you, that's totally fine. This video probably isn't for you. But there is another kind of a artist, and that is a successful, thriving artist. And in order to be a successful, thriving artist, also someone who's wanting to become a professional artist, this artist has grit and they are ready to start developing their own style in order to take their work to the next level. This artist is actually really dissatisfied with where they are at, and they're always trying to get to the next level, but they are willing to do whatever it takes to level up their art skills. And I just want to point out that really the only difference between a hobby artist and a successful artist is the willingness to do the work. So while you might not feel successful right now, in order to become a successful artist, you have to be willing to put in the time and the effort and to put in the practice. So Today, I want to talk to you a little bit more about my journey. Okay. So, I want to share this photo with all of you. This is me circa 2011. Let me just make my face a little bit smaller here. This was at my very first art show. Look at me. I'm so proud of myself. And I had worked so hard to put together this art show, but it was really at the beginning of my art journey. I had started painting after a car accident rearranged my brain, and making art really became my therapy. I fell in love with the process of making art. But I was also going through an awkward stage in my art making. I really struggled with my sense of style and who I was as an artist. And because of that, I tried so many different styles during this time. I loved the process of making art, but I didn't always love the art that I was creating. And I didn't know how to get to the place that I wanted to be in my skill level. And because of this, I was really lacking in my skills. I spent a lot of time simply imitating and copying other artists. I know it kind of feels a little bit yucky admitting that, but if I had known what I'm going to be teaching you today, I think everything would be so different. Okay, moving along. I want to actually talk about what it means to be a creative nomad. And there's nothing wrong with being a creative nomad. It just means that you sort of jump all over the place in your style and you struggle to commit to one particular style. And this used to be me. I used to be a creative nomad. I tried every style, genre, and expression out there. I really had to try all the things before I started to figure out what I really loved. And before I started figuring out why I loved certain expressions. And it's something that I wish I knew when I began my art journey and I was trying all of these different techniques was to actually go deeper into the art elements that I really felt most drawn to. Things like color and texture and shape. If I had learned that those were the art elements that I felt most drawn to, I know that I would have learned how to innovate my process and go find more clarity in my own style so much faster. Okay. And today, this is what I love taking artists through in my mentorship program and in Style Lab. I love supporting artists and helping them develop their own style. And it is through really evaluating the 7 elements of art. So, style is simple. Many artists just have not been taught how to break down an art style into the simplest of building blocks, which are the 7 elements of art. They are line, color, shape, form, value, texture, and space. And especially if you're a self taught artist like me, sometimes we don't have a full understanding of the 7 elements of art and how they fit together into specific compositions. And it's not just about form, you guys. I think form gets elevated in terms of elements above a lot of other of the other of 6 elements of art. It's not always just about form. So, understanding the 7 elements of art is so incredibly important in order to find your own expression. So, I want to share a quick story with you. This was just a few years ago. I was speaking with a younger gal who had gotten to know me over the course of a few months, and she asked if she could see some of my artwork. And I pulled up my Instagram and I showed her my Instagram feed. And she gave me the best compliment ever. She said, "Oh, it's you, but on a canvas." And I just remember thinking, that is so cool that my art is truly an embodiment of who I am as a person. And she could see that just by looking at my art. So I want to talk about this because thriving as an artist all begins with finding your unique expression. What sets you apart as an artist? It can be your color palette, your design choices, your subject matter, the way in which you draw, the amount of negative space that you use, the way that you utilize shape, form, and value. All of these elements make up who you are as an artist. We all have a unique expression of creating. The key is to find the different combination of art elements or style elements that is truly you, and then let everything else fall away. And this is what I've discovered in working with students who are what I like to call a chronic art course junkie. These are students who take all the art classes, but never learn how to pull specific things from those classes and then let everything else fall away. And so this is what I teach inside of my programs is how do you take those elements from the courses that feel like you, but leave all of the other things behind. And I think it is extremely important if you're wanting to develop your own style. So here's what I found. Most artists are actually innately drawn to 2 to 3 art elements or style elements within their art. And the way that an artist chooses to express or even not express each art element is actually what makes up their style. The lack of an art element is just as powerful as the choice to incorporate that art element. And the extent to which you emphasize each one is what makes up your unique expression. So, for example, I usually like to focus on color, shape, and texture, especially in that order. And because I focus so heavily on those elements, you don't really see a lot of form in my art. I don't enjoy form, and that is 100% okay. So, moving along, I will just briefly go through some of the different art elements, but I encourage you to explore each art element or each style element, and how you choose to express each one is what makes up your specific style. So, moving along, I encourage you to find your own unique expression of each one of no talking, please. So, moving along really quickly through these different elements of art, each one is important to identify in the art that you are making, but also in the art that you're really wanting to be making. And sometimes there's a disconnect between the two. And if you haven't watched my video where I talk about a style disconnect, I recommend that you go watch that video and I'll try to leave the link in the description so you can hear my own story of how I even recognized that I had a style disconnect in my own work. So, how do you explore line in your work? Do you like a lot of line showing through, like in these pieces here? Or do you consider line as an important part of your foundation for creating your pieces? Maybe you can't even see any line work in your art, and that's okay too. That's another way that you might choose to express line in your art. Shape. Do you love to use two-dimensional shape? If you love pattern, if you love a really bold graphic shape in your work, a little bit like what you can see in these pieces, then shape is going to be one of your primary art elements. And there's a difference between two-dimensional shape and three-dimensional form, which makes something almost look like it is coming to life. Three-dimensional form is used in realism, okay? And hopefully you can sort of see the difference between the two by looking at these pieces here. Okay, and color. I think it's really important to develop your own signature color palette. It's what sets you apart as an artist. I am known for my color. There are some artists who are known for their use of a neutral color palette, and that is also part of your unique expression as an artist. And the more that you develop as an artist, the more you become known for your specific color palette that you prefer to use in your work. Okay, so form. I already talked about this a little bit, and form is the capacity of making something look three-dimensional and almost lifelike. And so, if you enjoy a more realistic look, then form is one of your primary art elements. And what's really fun is you can kind of have a combination of different art elements in your work. So, in order to actually achieve a sense of form, you will need to have some sort of value. And value is what creates depth. It is the capacity of going from light to dark. Okay. And sometimes I feel like artists are a little bit lacking in their value skills. Something that you can do to improve in your value is turn your painting into a black and white photo and filter it through a black and white filter. And that will show you where you need to grow in terms of your value. And sometimes you can even use value without having any capacity of form because you can use it in an abstract piece. A little bit like what you see down here in this bottom painting. Okay, moving along is texture. Now, texture is one of those art elements that you either love or hate. And I would like to say that, first of all, I love using texture, but it is one of the trickier art elements to build your skills in because texture can actually take over a painting if you're not particularly careful. And so texture is one of those things that I find that artists either love or they hate. And it's just a very polarizing element. Okay, and moving along is space. Space is I feel like, one of the unsung heroes of the elements of art. And it's really important in terms of creating movement in your pieces. It's not just about using negative space for movement and for, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but if there's a lack of space in your work, that also is a very specific design choice. We have something that can be minimalism all the way to maximalist work. And that also is a choice. And I find that the longer I'm doing this, the, the more important it is for me to master space in my paintings, because without it, you will feel overwhelmed. Okay. And so some artists prefer to use a lot of negative space in their work, but it's also one of the greatest composition errors that you can make if you don't have enough negative space in your pieces. Okay, so just to sort of recap all of the things we just covered, understanding the art elements or style elements and how they relate to each other is incredibly important. And it actually will really change the way that you look at your style. Every time you look at a piece of art, take notice of what style elements are the most prominent. Each and every style is different. Some artists like to use more form, like in highly realistic styles, and others prefer to use a much more graphic shape instead of form. And that's just a few examples, but I want to walk you through some actual pieces of art and talk to you about the way that each art piece uses different elements. Okay. So, really quickly, we'll start with this piece. This is a portrait that I created several years ago. This piece actually primarily uses a combination of form, value, and shape. There is also a small touch of line showing through, and there's also a good amount of negative space. If you look at her face, it still feels very graphic because of the paper being the negative space, and it's not fully form, right? And then there is also really defined shape in her face. Okay, so moving along, let's go to this piece. This piece is mostly all about line and color. Sometimes just highlighting two style elements can create even more defined and unique styles of art. Okay, moving along, we have this piece. This piece primarily uses a combination of color, shape, and line. There's also a good amount of negative space happening in this piece, but not necessarily something that you might notice upon first glance, but it's very important to the composition. There's not a lot of form happening in this piece. Okay, moving along, this is one of my signature paintings. This piece mostly uses color, shape, and texture. Okay, and it's one of my signature pieces that I like to call crazy floral bouquets. And I've actually sold almost 600 of these paintings. And I attribute it to the fact that I am pretty consistent in my style And that's one of the benefits of developing your own style as an artist is that it's easier to market to your your collectors and your audience. And this is actually one of my favorite abstract paintings that I've done. And I think it's because it feels so spacious to me. It really conveys a sense of peace and spaciousness. The main elements in this painting are space and color, right? But there's also a good amount of shape and line, and something that I hadn't really thought about before, but there's also some value happening in this piece. Okay, so those are all my pieces that I wanted to share with you just to show you how I have tried lots of different styles over the years. Those were just a smattering, like a small handful. And I will say that, a successful artist knows when to shift and change in their style, and there's nothing wrong with that. But also that it's important in marketing to stay fairly consistent in your style. And it's in order to do that, you really have to build the skills within each one of these elements of art. It's how I've gotten where I've gotten as an artist. And it's also what I believe has made me successful in selling my artwork. So, like I mentioned early in this video, if you've gotten this far, kudos. I would love to share with all of you a, a free diagnostic tool for any of you who are wanting to develop your own style. I have created this art style blueprint, and I am so incredibly thrilled with this quiz that I have developed. And I will leave a link in the description for you to go take this quiz yourself. And I just want to let you know that as you're taking the test, you can absolutely answer more than one answer. Okay, there it's all multiple choice. And I encourage you to check all the answers that apply to you. And it might feel a little bit tricky, but do your best to answer each question to the best of your ability. I've been doing this quiz with some of my students, and it seems to be fairly accurate. It might shift and change from day to day, but the goal to this quiz is to help you figure out what are your top 2 to 3 art elements. And after taking this quiz, you should have a page that will look like this on your results page. And it will break down each one of the 7 elements of art. And these were my results the day that I took them. Now, I just want to point out that none of these answers were a surprise to me. So at the very top was color, because color is my driving art element. I find that all of my style is driven by color. And then shortly after that is shape. And what's kind of a little bit interesting is that I have actually been focused a little bit more in this season on value over texture. And that's because I've been taking a little bit of a break from texture, and I've been diving into value a little bit deeper and wanting to blend and create more depth in my work. And so that came up as a little bit more of a priority than texture when I took this quiz. But When you take my art style blueprint, you should be able to at least see what is your top art element. So, just to recap, I want to encourage you as you go from this video. First of all, thank you for watching until the end. But I just want to ask, as you are looking at art and as you're looking not just at your own art, but at other art that you enjoy, what do you like about a piece of art? And if you really struggle with not knowing your style, start asking yourself those questions and always identify why you like a piece of art. Is it the color, texture, line work, shape, form, use of space, or value? Is it the color palette, the texture, the use of texture, the graphic shape, the negative space, or the use of form? And the bottom line is the more you get clear about why you like what you like, and the more you will be able to actually duplicate that in your artwork. And in another video, I want to talk about okay, so you figure out what kind of art do I really love? How can I build the skills that I need within each one of those elements of art? That's the next step. After you take the quiz, you need to figure out how do you build the skills in order to become the artist that you want to be. And that's the exciting part, you guys. The most exciting part is that all skills are easy to accomplish. You can build your skills as an artist in every single one of these elements of art. And that is the part that I love helping artists with in my mentorship programs and in my courses is that if you're wanting to get somewhere in your style, all you have to do is be consistent in your practice, show up and do the work, put in the practice in each one of these art skills or art elements, and you will be able to accomplish the style that you're wanting to get to. So go take my art style blueprint quiz for free and find out right now what your top art elements are.